Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, you know, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18 plus.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
Greetings, America. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. I am delighted to have you with me. The phone number, 877-973-7425. Now, we've got to dive into the Auto Workers Union. The UAW and their strike. I want to play for you a couple of pieces of audio here. I want to begin with Janet Yellen, who was on CNBC talking about the economy.
Look, we still have a good, healthy labor market. Consumer spending remains quite robust. We've seen strong industrial production. I don't see any signs that the economy is at risk of a downturn.
Don't see any risk that the economy is headed towards downturn. Also, there's this about gas prices.
We are seeing lower inflation, which is why I'm wondering how you're thinking about the gas price move. Big jump in the month of August. Crude is back above $90 per barrel. The Saudis are extending the production cuts through the end of the year. Are you looking at taking any action on this front?
Well, the president wants to make sure that gas prices remain affordable for Americans. Americans care a great deal about the price of gas. They're still down $1.20 off their highs last summer, although they have gone up recently. China's ended its pandemic lockdowns, and although Chinese growth is slower than expected, China coming back online, and the continuation of the production cuts by Saudi Arabia has lifted oil prices somewhat. We're monitoring this situation very closely. The president has taken action over the last year. Certainly, the releases of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve have been important in holding down oil prices, and we'll continue to monitor that closely.
I just wonder how much space you have and what you would potentially do because we are losing progress on this front with oil prices rising.
Well, my expectation is that they will stabilize, but we'll just keep an eye on it.
Oh, she can put you to sleep. And I'm sorry, knowing she can put you to sleep. Let me just play one more clip for you here, and this specifically about the United Auto Workers strike.
You know, I think it's premature to be making forecasts about what it means for the economy. It would depend very much on how long the strike lasts and exactly who's affected by it. But the important point, I think, is that the two sides need to narrow their disagreements and to work for a win-win, a contract that's good for the workers and for the industry as well. The industry has been doing well, and the president wants to see the workers come out ahead as well.
Yeah, okay. There's a problem. And the problem, quite frankly, is what the union workers want sounds good, but economically would destroy the business of auto manufacturing by the big three. I mean, just listen to this real quick. This is Neil Bradley with the Chamber of Commerce.
And now I want to bring in Neil Bradley, Executive Vice President of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Hi, Neil. Thanks for your time tonight. So the Chamber of Commerce is blaming President Biden for this strike. Why do you think he bears responsibility here?
Well, I think part of what we're seeing going on in this strike, and really a summer of strikes, over 200 strikes so far this year and counting, is this kind of a sense of unrealistic expectations of what can economically be done. No one's talking about not raising employee pay. In fact, you just showed the graphic yourself, bringing in this segment, 20% pay increases that are being put forward by the major auto companies. So the question is, what kind of pay increases can be absorbed in this moment? And I think what we've come to realize is that when you want to increase pay by 40% and you want to get paid for 5 days, but only work 4 days, these are the type of kind of demands that just aren't grounded in economic reality.
Demands not grounded in economic reality. Let me explain the economic reality for you. Let me throw some numbers your way on the impracticality of what the United Auto Workers want of General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis. And I want to say Chrysler. What a terribly named company. Stellantis just sounds like it was market tested or something among corporate boards. It's Chrysler Fiat with a number of other brands, but it's Chrysler. Let's talk about Tesla, because the auto industry is pushing more towards electric vehicles, and Tesla is the standard bearer. The labor costs at Tesla are $45 an hour. The labor costs at Tesla are $45 an hour. That includes the hourly wage, healthcare, pension, 401k, all the benefits. It works at $45 an hour. You know what the labor cost average for Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler is? $66 an hour. If the United Auto Workers get the pay bump that they sought, it would swell the labor cost to $136 an hour, according to Wells Fargo. Tesla, $45 an hour if the UAW gets its way. General Motors, Chrysler, Ford, $136 an hour. You can't compete. The world is moving to electric vehicles as the Biden administration wants. Ford, Chrysler, and GM go out of business if they give the UAW what it wants. But there's more to it than that. So they want to have their workers be paid to work 5 days a week, but only work 4 days a week. They want to increase promotions and the pay raises of promotions, and the pay of minimum work. I mean, right now, Chrysler and Ford are offering $20 an hour. General Motors and Ford, $20 an hour. Chrysler, Stellantis offering $70.50 an hour. That's their compromise. They're willing to give a pay raise. They're also willing to speed up the number of years that a worker has to work for their next step up in pay from 8 years down to 5 years. Right now, to get to where, so there's a group of employees who were grandfathered in 2007. They're pensioned employees, and they have high pay raises, and they're slowly retiring. And if you want to match their pay, you have to work for 8 years right now at one of the big three auto manufacturers, and they're offering to work 5 years instead to speed it up. It's one of the things being negotiated on, but they don't want to start there because it'll bankrupt the companies. The companies just went through bankruptcy. The problem here is this, and this is the ultimate key issue here. The Biden administration has claimed that it is a pro-worker administration, that it's a pro-union administration, and it wants unionization for everyone. And they don't just want unionization for everyone. They want to make it easier to strike. And these workers at the United Auto Workers said, all right, we're going to take you at your word, and that's what we're going to do. And the Biden administration can't now stop this. They played recklessly. They played willfully on the emotions of the unionized workers. And now those unionized workers have decided to take them at their word. You got Bernie Sanders out there. He was on with Jake Tapper calling for a 4-day work week.
To some of those bigger issues in a second, but first I want to ask you, this push from the UAW for a 4-day work week, is that a negotiating tactic, or do you see that as the future of labor in the U.S., a 4-day work week?
Well, I'll tell you what I think, and thanks for raising that question, Jake. We are looking at an explosion in this country of artificial intelligence and robotics. And that means that the average worker is going to be much more productive. Worker productivity is going to increase significantly. The question as a nation that we have got to ask ourselves is who is going to benefit from that increased productivity? Is all of that new income and wealth being created by worker productivity going to go to the people on top, or are workers going to benefit? So right now, in my view, I happen to believe that as a nation, we should begin a serious discussion, and the UAW is doing that, about substantially lowering the work week.
Because of the prospect of robots and artificial intelligence, we should start lowering the work week now. We don't even know how good this stuff is going to be. In fact, the examples we have right now are not good. They want to go on and do this. They want to lower the work week to 4 days a week and also get a pay raise. I can see leave our pay the same and let us only work 4 days a week. I could see that. You're still ultimately getting a pay raise because you got 3 days off. But to say we want massive increase in pay and we only want to work 4 days a week, do they not realize the economic condition of this country, let alone the economic condition of the auto manufacturers? It sounds great, except their butts are already getting kicked by all the non-Detroit, non-American auto workers and automakers. Hyundai, Kia, Toyota, BMW, Mercedes mostly build outside of pro-union states. Their labor costs are less. Their employees are still making a good living. Tesla, the same way. Its labor costs are far less. It's all battery. That's where these groups want to go. These groups want to go towards battery-powered cars, not hybrids like Toyota, but battery-powered cars, which need less parts. They don't need all the oil components. They don't need the big engine components. And they don't want the unions don't want anybody laid off. They want them transitioned into other things, even though you need less of them. This is not practical, and here's the thing. They can't recognize it's not practical. They can't back down. Sean Fain, the head of the United Auto Workers, can't walk away from this. He's put too much energy into it, which means this is going to go on for a while, and as it goes on for a while, it's going to have cascading effects into the economy. Janet Yellen can say it's premature to determine the economic fallout. I don't think it's premature at all. They can't get what they want without bankrupting the auto manufacturers. Therefore, they can't get what they want. Therefore, they continue to strike. Therefore, we have cascading effects in the economy, and it's going to head us into a recession quicker than people expected, right as Joe Biden is trying to run for re-election. And he's going to deserve it because he emboldened and encouraged these people to go on strike. They took him at his word, and he will deal with the fallout in his defeat next November. I am a small businessman. The company that I run for my radio show, it's a small business. I've got employees. I don't have HR. You may be in that situation, and you may really need HR. Well, you may want to talk to Bambi. When running a business, your employees can create all sorts of interesting situations, and they could get you in trouble. What happens when two employees are squabbling? One of them smells bad all the time. What do you do? How do you navigate the rules? With Bambi, you get access to your own dedicated HR manager starting at just $99 a month. They're available by phone, email, real-time chat. Onboarding and terminations run smoothly. Team members reach peak performance. Your business stays compliant with changing HR regulations. Let Bambi handle your employees for you. Their HR autopilot automates important HR practices like setting policies, training, and feedback. Listen, you want U.S.-based HR managers who give you experience, expertise, a personal touch you need to make it seem like they're a part of your team. They could cost $80,000 a year, but Bambi starts at $99 a month. Schedule your free conversation today to see how much Bambi can take off your plate. Go to Bambi.com right now. Type in Eric Erickson under podcast when you sign up. It'll help you. It'll help your company grow. It'll help you keep peace of mind. It's spelled B-A-M-B-E-E. BAM, B-E-E.com. Bambi.com. Type in Eric Erickson. Welcome back. It's Eric Erickson. 877-973-7425 is the number. I want to jump to the phones here. Pierce, you're going to be up next. Welcome.
Hey, Eric. How are you doing this afternoon?
Great. How are you?
I'm great. You were talking about euthanasia and the growing, how it's growing around in the States and other countries. Mm-hmm. And you also mentioned about how the going through the suffering is a ministry
Mm-hmm.
to the family. Well, I have recent experience with that. My 42-year-old daughter last year died from brain tumor in her head caused by her cervical cancer.
Mm.
And going through hospice, she had a lot of pain because they took the tumor out, but there was more cancer and her edema kept growing, and there wasn't much hope anyway. But just making sure getting the pain meds and things, and really the treatments for her at the time of discovering it, what it was, would have left her far worse shape than she was already in, and it would only extend life. They said the cancer would come back. So,
gosh.
And when you talk about people just taking their life, going through euthanasia to not have their families going through their suffering, it's wrong. And I agree with you, because I think had she chosen euthanasia and we didn't have that time with her that we had those last few months, I think all of us, it would be even harder now for me to move forward out of the grief of losing her. And so,
yeah, I can see that.
I think that's wrong. And, it's just, people don't understand that the family, and you don't want your loved one hurting and suffering. The brain is different than the rest of the body, so morphine, Valium, things like that, they don't touch the pain. It's nerves, so they have to use a different type of meds, anti-anxiety, and some other things that kind of deaden those nerves that are pressing against the brain because it's swelling. Yeah. And it does made her a little more comatose and sleeping more, but the reality was we were able to spend time with her when she was lucid, conversations and that kind of thing. So I have to
look, Pierce, I thank you for calling. It hurts my heart to hear the story, but I appreciate you calling and sharing. And yeah, it's easy, I think, for a lot of people to say, well, let's just euthanasia, end it. We know it's inevitable, so stop before the pain comes. And it's a rational response. It is, particularly if you've seen someone suffer oftentimes, like my wife with her mom, thinking that's don't want my family to go through that. But as I have said to my wife and others as well, that it's you depriving your family of getting some closure when you do that, and it's a personal decision, but also I think we need to generally be mindful of the fact that more and more studies, more and more evidence, more and more reports, and more criminal prosecutions are showing us that once the euthanasia movement takes root in a state or a country, we go from doing it in limited circumstances to making it the default option, pushing people into it. And there's more and more troubling data and stories coming out across the nation of healthcare providers giving people no option other than assisted suicide. It's a great way for the state to save money instead of giving people healthcare. And again, in Canada now, overwhelmingly, someone struggling with suicidal thoughts, they're given the option of assisted suicide as opposed to a therapist to help them. It's just sad. Now, before we go to commercial break, I got to tell you about the Eden Pure, the 360 air fan. It's a heater and a cooler. It is. I've used this last year on my front porch, and we actually wanted to do this last year, but they were still having supply chain problems, and they couldn't. But this thing, it packs a wall up. It's quiet. It's small. But you're not supposed to use it outside, but I did because I needed just that extra little blast of hot air. It's an infrared heater. It's got an airflow circulator that provides rapid cooling when the heater element is not on. But it also uses circular copper PDC heating elements, so it doesn't dry out the air and it heats evenly. It gets nice and hot. It heats and cools 1,000 square feet. There's no bulbs to worry about burning out. It's 98% more efficient. It runs whisper quiet. It only weighs like 7.8 pounds. It can heat the air and push it 33 feet. It works great, and it's got a remote control. If you want one of these, the winter is coming, you have 1,000 square feet or less you want to heat up efficiently, you go to EdenPureDeals.com. You put in the discount code ERIC360, ERICK360. You'll get over 25% off the lowest price listed. You'll get free shipping. EdenPureDeals.com. Discount code is ERIC360. I'm in a good mood. Do you know why? Because I've already figured out dinner tonight. I was supposed to make onion rings and grill hamburgers yesterday for the family, and it got to be late. My wife was making stuff. Now, you guys don't understand. No, you're like, why is he starting this? You don't understand, because in my house, with my family, the conversation typically begins as soon as I'm off radio. What do you want for supper? Well, I don't know. What do you want? Food. What sort of food? The type that you eat. What sort of food that you eat? The type that I like. What do you like? I don't know. And on it goes for hours. Not tonight. I'm making hamburgers, frying onion rings. I have a great onion ring. Oh, I make good onion rings. In any event, I've got it all figured out. Now I just got to get out of here, go to the gym, and not be exhausted after the gym. Now, we got to move on. Okay, there's a bit of poll in Virginia. Founders Insight. 58% of Virginians approve of Glenn Youngkin's job as governor. Only 44% approve of Biden's job as president. Among independents, Youngkin's approval is higher, 65%. 65% of independents. Now, this is relevant because the Virginia Senate seats are up for grabs. Well, everything's up for grabs. The Republicans in Virginia are pretty sure they're going to hold the House of Delegates, and they're trying to pick up the Senate in large part because the Virginia Senate has been an obstacle to implementing school reforms in Virginia. So they're trying to pick it up. Youngkin's popularity is helping. It also helps that the Democrats went hard left. You got the porn star woman. You got a bunch of Black Lives Matters activists who are campaigning on defunding the police, among other things. In fact, you had a number of hardcore progressives beat more moderate liberal Democrats. The progressives beating the liberals in the primaries. The white woke Democrats went really far left, and it's alienating independent voters, which is a great thing for the GOP and a great thing for Youngkin. It'll be interesting to see if he can pull this off. Now, in all of this, there's something else here that we need to talk about that I think is really relevant, really important for you to understand. Back in the day, when Herbert Hoover was running for president, I know Herbert Hoover, I know, but what was this saying? A car in every garage and a chicken in every pot, or some such. Let's see, make sure I get this one right. Hoover, car in every garage. Yeah. That's what he was. So it was an advertisement. And it was not an advertisement for the let me back up here. So Hoover ran a newspaper ad, and the title at the top was "A Chicken for Every Pot." Wages, dividends, progress, and prosperity say vote for Hoover. That was his campaign. And so Democrats essentially said what he was promising was a chicken in every pot and 2 cars in every garage. And it wasn't, but it was essentially the prosperity message that Hoover was pushing. And what became really essential to what Herbert Hoover was saying in the 1930s when he was running was you got to have, or 1920s, what you got to have is prosperity for Americans to seize the American dream. And what was the American dream? Home ownership. Moving people from a rental society to an ownership society. After World War II, when Harry Truman was president, and then Eisenhower and Truman both pushed the idea of home ownership, not landlords, not rentals, but taking the GIs coming back from World War II and ensuring they had homes that they could buy. I mention all of this because of the story in Bloomberg News. I don't think you can underestimate this story having an impact on Americans negatively towards Joe Biden. Record low U.S. housing affordability is squeezing home buyers and renters while threatening to spill into presidential politics. Milwaukee, the largest city in key swing state Wisconsin, saw affordability deteriorate in its rental markets more than almost any U.S. metro area in the year ending July, according to a measure by the National Association of Realtors. The region also recorded one of the greatest increases in mortgage burden among the biggest 50 metros in the past year. The housing situation in Milwaukee, the site of next year's Republican National Convention, is a version of a scenario playing out in cities across the country. U.S. mortgage rates in August hit the highest level since 2000, which has translated into the fewest home buying applications in decades. Adding to the pressure is the scarcity of inventory, which has helped push selling prices as well as rents to near record high levels. Milwaukee's crunch stands out, though, because housing in the region has traditionally been relatively stable and cheap, and because it has potential for political fallout. Among large metro areas and swing states, it has the greatest decrease in housing affordability in the past year. I shouldn't have to explain this to you, but we may have listeners from Rio Linda, and they will require explanation. Homes typically do not decline over time in value. And as your home price goes up, you get something called equity. And equity is the value in your home after your mortgage. So your home is worth $500,000. Your mortgage, you still owe $300,000. 500 minus 300, 200,000. You have $200,000 in equity in your house. And over time, your mortgage continues to go down until you've paid it off. And over time, while your mortgage is going down, the value of your home is going up. The problem we have right now is that the values of homes are going up. And because of inflationary costs and interest rates, there aren't a lot of homes being built right now. So there's scarcity. So the value of homes continues to go up. The interest rate on mortgages continues to go up. Fewer and fewer Americans can buy. What happens when you're not buying a house? You are renting a house or an apartment. And every month, the money that you spend goes to rent, not to mortgage. So you're not paying down a mortgage to increase your equity. You're just paying a rent. And so you're not building equity. And when you're not building equity, you're building intergenerational poverty. Now, that's putting it bluntly and more expansively than I should, but that's the point. So you have a multiple generations of black homeowners in this country who were for years renters in government housing and the like, so they never built equity, so they have nothing to pass on to their children. So their children get no inheritance, and over time, in a lot of the black community, they put their money elsewhere, and that elsewhere prevents intergenerational transfers of wealth. But you're increasingly seeing this across the board, not just in the black community, but in the white community, Hispanic community, and Asian community. As there is scarcity of housing, people are turning into renters. And as you turn into a renter, you are not able to engage into an intergenerational wealth transfer. Because when people transfer their wealth, the bulk of their wealth is in their home. And when there is no home in which to transfer that equity, to transfer wealth, you got nothing to show for it. And that impacts a voter's idea of their prosperity, and it impacts their voters' idea of their future, and it impacts a voter's idea of their children's future too. And part of the problem, well, they're multifaceted parts of this, but one of them is that you've got groups like BlackRock and Blackstone more so than BlackRock. BlackRock has all the ESG stuff. Blackstone is more Republican leaning, and they're buying up all the houses. In Franklin, Tennessee, that's where Dave Ramsey is. Franklin, Tennessee is exploding. The Nashville area generally is exploding. I was there last week. The amount of construction, the amount of new buildings, the amount of new apartments, the amount of new houses is massive. 1,000 people a week are moving to Nashville. 1,000 people a week. There are no new homes available, except among the really, really rich. What's happening is groups like Blackstone and others are buying up all the available houses, and then they're renting them. in neighborhoods across America, houses are getting snapped up by these private equity groups and hedge funds, and they're forcing people to rent. You can't buy the house. They hold on to the house, and they force you to rent. And you're deprived of any equity. You are turned into a renter who is deprived of any ability to build equity. And any house that you want is too much. I had an Uber driver a couple of weeks ago. My car needed repair. I needed a Uber guy to pick me up and take me to get my car, just what is it, Uber X or whatever. And the guy was telling me that he is driving Uber and doing Instant Cart to raise money, save money to put a down payment on a house or to pay outright for cash, because 3 times now he's a veteran. And even with loans for veterans and the like, he has struggled to compete against others who have enough cash to buy the house outright. And he said 2 of the houses he and his wife wanted to look at, they're in an apartment right now, 2 of the houses he wanted to buy, they were bought by these private equity groups, and now these houses are available for rent. It's not just him. This is a story across the country. And as Americans are unable to buy houses, their future net worth declines, their feeling of vulnerability increases, and that's going to play out on Joe Biden. And you know, the biggest impact on this right now, it's not just the private equity buyers, it's the NIMBY people, the not in my backyard people who don't want more houses built. San Francisco, for example, has a massive homelessness problem, and San Francisco has the most expensive housing market in the country, and they're not willing to allow people to build new houses in the area. So you have a shortage of housing, a massive homeless population. It's too expensive for the middle class, so they're leaving the city, and this problem cycles and gets worse and worse and worse. All of this is to say, the Democrats have decided to, it appears, stick with Joe Biden at a time the economy does not appear to be doing well. They could have some economic calamity in this country if they're not careful. And that could have a cascading spillover effect on the electorate. And if the Republicans do nominate Donald Trump, he could potentially win. It is not a done deal. It's not a foregone conclusion that Joe Biden will lose, but it's not a foregone conclusion that he will win either. For a man whose party loathes not just Donald Trump, but all the Republicans, and a man who is convinced that it was his election that stopped Donald Trump, you would think he might recognize that maybe his continuing in the position is what gets Donald Trump reelected. Americans believe they're losing the American dream. They didn't feel this way when Donald Trump was president, but they feel this way with Joe Biden. And any Republican, Donald Trump and the rest, have a message to sell to the American people, that we will restore the American dream. We will get you in that house with a car in the garage and the chicken in the pot. It won't end up like Herbert Hoover. It'll end up helping you build an intergenerational wealth transfer that Joe Biden has denied. There's a way to message that will be compelling and will make Americans turn on Joe Biden, a man they already don't like and whose economy they already loathe. The Democrats can't take that for granted. But they're going to, and that's going to be fun to watch. Now, real world here, real world, I got on stamps.com. So I got a little thermal printer that I can just print a label out because I got to ship something to a guy. And I got on my stamps.com account. I was able to do it all with a little thermal printer on the computer right then and there. I can manage orders on the app. I can schedule package pickups if I need to. I can connect with every major marketplace and shopping cart out there to make shopping and printing and shipping really easy. And I get huge carrier discounts up to 84% off the post office and UPS rates, and automatically find the cheapest and fastest shipping options. And there are no lines. Y'all, literally, I printed this off, stamps.com, printed the label, and I'm just going to go drop it off. I'm taking it to UPS. I'm just going to drop it off. It's already labeled. It's already weighed. They don't have to do anything. I don't have to stand in that line. I go to the front of the line, drop it off, and I leave. It's fantastic. When you're running low on supplies, you can even order those from stamps.com. They got a supply store. Over 1 million businesses have used stamps.com to get ready for the holiday rush. You can sign up today with code ERIC, E-R-I-C-K. Special offer includes 4-week trial, free postage, and a free digital scale. I used my digital scale. I weighed my package, and I was able to print out the label onto my thermal printer, stick it down, got it with UPS, and I'm just going to drop it off this afternoon. Everything's done. There's no long-term commitment. There's no contract. All you do is go to Stamps.com. You click on the microphone. You click in, you type in ERIC, E-R-I-C-K, and you can do this just like I do this. I've done this for a very long time. The thermal printer I just bought makes it even easier. The scale, the stamps, everything. Stamps.com makes it easy. You need to send packages. You don't want to wait in lines. You can do it with Stamps.com. Click on the microphone, put in ERIC, E-R-I-C-K. Welcome. It's Eric Erickson. I gotta spend a moment here at the end on this U.S. Senate story. Chuck Schumer is the majority leader in the Senate, and he has rolled back the rules of decorum for the United States Senate because John Fetterman doesn't want to grow up. John Fetterman likes to wear shorts and sweatshirts. He doesn't like to put on a coat and tie. So to humor one man, Chuck Schumer has said the senators no longer have a dress code, but everybody else does. It's the perfect embodiment of the problem with the elite. They get to wear sweatshirts and shorts on the floor of the Senate, but everybody else has to have on coat and tie or dress. It's remarkable. I honestly wish that the Republican senators would show up in togas. And make a mockery of it. That if Fetterman gets to show up in his shorts and a T-shirt, they should show up in togas or show up in gaudy, tacky outfits. Make a big show of it. It's ridiculous. The changing the rules of decorum of an institution of the United States because one man doesn't want to conform is stupidity. It's like this nation devoting inordinate amounts of energy to the 0.5% of men and women who think they're of the opposite sex and want the rest of us to go along with it. Upending society for a handful of people never ends well. And the U.S. Senate deciding that you don't have to wear a suit anymore if you're an elected senator is a bad idea. I am going to be curious to see if Republicans decide to push the issue. I'm going to be curious to see if the GOP decides to fight back on this. It's absurd to me, one, that John Fetterman got to the Senate. And I get it. He was elected lieutenant governor. They knew him. The people didn't like Dr. Oz. Most of the vote was counted, or most of the vote was already cast in early voting before Fetterman even revealed how badly he had been damaged by the stroke and can't put two sentences together. But the damage was already done, and Oz was a bad candidate. And now you've got this situation, though. He's there. He struggled with depression, and now they're going to change the rules so poor little John doesn't have to take his shorts off and put the big boy suit on. They wouldn't do this for anyone else. Why do it for him? Decorum kind of matters. You're supposed to look like you belong there. John Fetterman doesn't want to look like that. John Fetterman, a man of means, wants to look like he's a homeless bum, and that's his look. That's his thing, and he should have to put on a suit to go cast his vote for the people of Pennsylvania. I kind of doubt the people of Pennsylvania want this homeless bum looking guy who can't put two words together to actually be their representative. That's how bad Dr. Oz was. But the Republicans and even some of the Democrats should fight this nonsense and this breach of decorum that Chuck Schumer's decided to allow so that he can get John Fetterman to come cast a vote. Absolutely ridiculous.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you want to get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.